And WinPCAP is the Windows part of the link or the link interface and the driver. And this is what's actually picking up the packets and working with Wireshark. So without WinPCAP and libpcap for Unix or Linux and airpcap for wireless systems, you're not going to be able to collect traffic. And that being, you will not be able to install Wireshark without WinPCAP for Windows, as an example. So when you run through the Wireshark install, you'll see that specifically you're not going to be able to manipulate or get around the installation of WinPCAP. It's fundamentally part of the installation process for Wireshark. And again, it's used to capture the data. Now, the NIC and promiscuous mode, what does this actually mean? So essentially, your NIC card is going to capture data destined to it. But what if that NIC card needed to be configured to basically pick up all data traffic it sees, which it normally does not do? That means that the NIC needs to be put into promiscuous mode. And that's essentially what this driver is helping it do. And as I had mentioned earlier, Wireshark cannot be used without one of these drivers. Essentially, the installation is very simple. You're going to have a couple of options here when you install Wireshark, either for the first time or if you have a clean machine without it, or if you're installing and you have Wireshark already installed. You can install multiple versions of Wireshark. You can uninstall the old version and install the newer version. You can upgrade the version, or now you can also install the new beta version. So here's an example. I currently am running at the same time two versions of Wireshark simultaneously. Now it's important you know that because you may choose to use a different version for specific reasons. You may have a different profile set up on it and you didn't want to have the profile on both machines. You may like a different interface. So just be aware that there's multiple ways that you can install or have Wireshark running on your system. Also plugins. So with plugins, you have a plugins folder, which is pretty much the dissectors, which is the underlying development code, and these are shown as DLLs that allow you to specifically work with certain types of data. Now, for wireless as an example, you would use the WiMAX dissector, which is a plugin as part of the Wireshark tool. So it's important to understand that Wireshark in itself seems very modular. So to get extra functionality, you may have to add in certain plugins to get that functionality. By default, it comes with all the plugins you need to prepare for the Wireshark Certified Network Analyst exam. You will also be asked to select WinPCAP, whether to upgrade it or not. Interestingly, just as an aside, I assume the past 20 times I've upgraded Wireshark or installed it, it's been the same version of WinPCAP. This does not change very rapidly or does not change often. So essentially just remember for the exam what WinPCAP does, the different versions of it for the different operating systems, and you will have to install it as part of the installation, and or you could say, well, I already have the same version installed, so don't bother. Global settings, specifically things that you want to change globally on the installation itself, and personal settings. This is anything from desktop icon to certain places where you want to install it, the default folder as an example, and then the tools. So you may not want to install the command line tools, T-Shark and all those tools on your system. For example, you can install and use it on Windows. A good example is here. I'm using, on my Windows system, I am using T-Shark, but essentially, I don't have any data traversing that LAN, but I just wanted to show you specifically that you can choose to install it and use it on Windows. For those of you that may or may not have access to Linux, which we will also look at and work primarily with when we do T-Shark, but just as a heads up, you may have to add this to your path to get it to work. And other tools that you may use with Wireshark, and that will complete the installation of the tool. And then you want to launch and check it. You want to make sure that it opens and you're able to run a capture. So on the left here, you can see the launch pad. This is the de facto standard now for Wireshark. For the older Ethereal users or older users of Wireshark, it opened directly into the 3-pane model, which is the packets list pane, the details pane, and the hex pane. Now you have a convenient launch pad. I actually like this launch pad because it gives you a quick way to get into some key aspects of the most common areas of Wireshark you're going to use when you start or open a capture. So it's a nice quick visual. Hey, here's the last captures you looked at in the files pane on the left. Here, open, and it'll browse to your capture folder if that's how you save your captures on your system or on a network share. On the left, you have the interface list, so you can modify the interfaces that are relevant or available to capture from. You can select the interface directly below that, click on capture options to make adjustments, such as I want to set up a capture filter, I want to have certain handling of the files and how they're manipulated. For example, I want to ring buffer them, I want to DNS resolve them, certain things of that nature. And then to start it right from there, and or some help areas, some sample captures, and direct access to key parts of the online community. Now, to the right, as we've mentioned earlier, this goes directly into the packets list pane, the details pane, and the hex pane, where no matter what you're in, so for example, if you are looking in the packets list pane, you can select the packet by either right-clicking or double-clicking on the packet, and it will open up directly into those other panes. So once you're done installing Wireshark, all you need to do is say, okay, well, I want to look at the details pane and or the hex pane, and or I'm looking through my my configuration here, and I say, oh, I think I just want to double click on that, and it opens up a subset of the detail and the hex pane. So this is your basic layout of Wireshark post installation. You know, you might want to run a capture, make sure it works, but otherwise, installing and running Wireshark is pretty much go online, download the most current version or the production version, the stable version, run install, decide where you want to install it. Make sure you install it on a clean PC, one that you know you're going to be able to use when you're working with Wireshark. Make sure that once you run the installation, you select or deselect what it is that you do or don't want. My suggestion is, if you're new to Wireshark, just install it all and kind of work your way through it. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And then once you're done, open the tool up and do a quick run through and get yourself acclimated to using the tool, again, against the syllabus for the Wireshark Network an Analyst exam, the WCNA exam. You're definitely going to have to know pretty much every aspect, every corner, every menu of this tool, and know where to find things rather quickly. And again, things that you may or may not commonly be used to using. This was somebody sharing some basic information as far as trying to answer the question earlier about the signaling on the medium. So essentially, this is what we would think it would be. Obviously, most of us would know binary communications, ones and zeros. I think the question and again, unless I misunderstood it, was the actual IP header diagram go in the flow, the same flow as it's listed? And I would have to suspect that it does, because, for example, in some of the other headers, you have some space for collisions, and I would assume that would have to be ordered. But since I couldn't, I didn't develop it, I didn't feel comfortable with answering it empirically. But we're pretty much in agreement that, and again, as you can see on the screen, since you're dealing with binary communications, it seems to be that it would be ordered.